Welcome to the gFour Contractor Pulse, where we talk with leaders in the home improvement industry about what's actually working right now. I'm Maria with gFour Marketing. So we are at the midpoint of the year, which means there's a good amount of data and real stories to pull from about what's working, what's not, and how pros are thinking about the back half of 2026. And I am really excited today about the guest that's joining me, Jennifer Bylo, who's the owner and president of Bay State Bath, a woman-owned premium bathroom remodeler serving Boston's South Shore out of Pembroke, Massachusetts. Now, Jennifer's got one of my favorite backstories in the business. She's a former nurse turned business owner. She's built Bay State into a company known for doing bath and shower remodels the right way, with a level of care that comes straight from her nursing days. So Jennifer, thank you so much for taking the time. Let's jump right in. I have my first question lined up for you.
Okay, go ahead. Fire away.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and Bay State. How did you get into the bath business? Give us a picture of what the company looks like today from where it began.
Well, it started out that it was myself and my ex-husband. I was not supposed to stay in the business. I was supposed to get a job in Boston at one of the teaching hospitals. That was kind of one of the exciting parts about moving the whole family up to Massachusetts just to do this business. Like, we are originally from Long Island. We're Yankee fans. So it was a little traumatic having to come to Red Sox territory, especially since my first year here, the Yankees were way ahead and then the Red Sox won. And it was probably not my doing, because I told all the girls in the bank, you're such quitters. They were all so doom and gloom, like, oh my God, the Red Sox, they always lose. The Yankees always win. The Red Sox always lose. I said, well, that's probably because you fans are a bunch of quitters. Don't quit on your team. You got to keep rooting for them. Even though it's the fourth game, you don't quit until it's the last pitch. And then, of course, they came back in a big way and won that whole series. It was pretty funny. But anyway, so what happened was my ex really underestimated the amount of work that would be needed to get the business, running properly, protect our investment. Because, we took the big plunge. We cashed in all our chips, sold our house in Long Island, sold my condo that I owned in Queens from when I used to be a nurse in New York City, and dragged 4 kids that were still very young out of their, my son was in 4th grade and my other kids were like 1st grade and then 2 in preschool. So we come all the way up here, become renters again, took our equity that we had in the house, gave it to the guy that we bought the business from. At the time, it was a franchise system. I originally started as a rebath franchisee, but eventually separated from them and became an independent. It was Bay State Rebath, and then now it's Bay State Bath. So anyway, so along the way, as I said, I wasn't supposed to stay in the business, but I did realize very quickly that there was a lot of potential with the business. And I kind of felt like I was still taking care of people, answering the phones, taking their inquiry, helping them get the courage to have a stranger come into the house to do a free and home consultation. At the time, Rebath was introducing a formal sales system, and the sales system, my ex-husband really didn't want to go to the class to learn it because he already knew how to do sales. He was great at sales, and, he didn't think he needed it. I said, well, I'd like to learn. And if we're going to be growing a team, somebody's going to need to teach them something. So let me go learn this new sales system thing. And that's when I learned the value of having processes and scripting and really having intention about how to operate a business. So unfortunately, within about 5 years, it became very clear that my ex-husband really wasn't cut out for this. We wound up also getting divorced. So it was too bad, because he was a great salesman, but just not a great leader in terms of managing the people that you need to manage to grow a company. Because back then it was he and I and 1 installer. Now we've got 40 employees, about 20 different, interchangeable subcontractors, depending on the phases of the full remodels that we do. And we don't just do liners anymore. We started in the liner business where we just went over the tub, over the walls. Now we can complete a full gut to stud remodel, or we can do a simple remove and replace. The big hot project is the tub to shower conversion. That by far is our most popular project. And because that's really geared toward the elderly people, I kind of feel like I'm a nurse again, because, the elderly people need a little extra hand holding along the way. So it was a very natural transition. Nurses are good listeners. They know how to document. They know how to communicate. They know how to lead. They know how to stay cool under pressure. And all of those traits gave way to kind of a natural transition for me as a leader in the company. And here we are. The company started back then, I think, gosh, I don't know, we had like 30 customers, I think, in the beginning. Maybe the first year, I think we did about maybe 2 million our first year. And now, we're on pace to do about 30 million this year. So big, and that's after a big course correction. When I separated from Rebouth, I had to start back at zero again. So that was in 2016. That was a big upset when Rebouth got bought by a a group of investors. The investors and I did not see the future in the same way. So unfortunately, they terminated me, and it was rather uncomfortable because we had, I think, 5,000 customers in common. And yeah, they didn't want to continue to have the relationship. So it was a difficult time. 2016, like I said, I had to go back to zero and start from nothing all over again after a non-compete for a year where I did some different businesses like kitchens and door replacements because I wasn't even allowed to put a toilet in. I couldn't even still run my plumbing company. So that was a difficult moment. But from difficulty, you gain strength and, resilience, and you learn that life is hard, but, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. So here I am.
Wow. Resilience is such a great word. That's what I kept thinking as we were telling your story, because it's the operational rigor of running a business, the empathetic relationship part that helps you make customers happy and be successful, and then the resilience to stay through even when things get really hard. That's what a beautiful recipe for success right there. So congratulations to you and the team for all of that hard work that goes into that.
Thanks.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about what markets are you in for those that are listening? Who are you serving in the Massachusetts area?
So we do basically Rhode Island, Eastern Massachusetts, and Southern New Hampshire. So, Massachusetts is our real core place, where we have the majority of our customers. But we do a fair amount of work in it's probably 80% Massachusetts, 20% Rhode Island, and then 10% Southern New Hampshire. We are getting ready to open up another location, and that'll probably happen in the next year up in the Southern New Hampshire area.
So there's only another chapter. Another chapter is about to open up for you.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Now I'm a grandmother. I have a grandson who's in our TV commercials, and everybody really enjoys watching the family because my children, or some of my children, not all of my children, but I have one daughter who works in Boston in wealth management, but the other three kids do all participate in the company. And so it's fun to see the growth and the changes along the way, because everybody was used to seeing me on television promoting my slogan, which I trademarked, Bay State Bath, remodeling your bath in just one day. And then the girls, as they got old enough to, they went through college, and my oldest daughter's a nurse, just like I was. She's the mother to baby Richie. So she works part-time as a nurse, and also she is part-time doing my payroll and some of my HR stuff. And then my middle daughter, Kirsten, works here full-time, as well as my son, Clint. So it's, family business. They can get a little tense sometimes. Sometimes there's a little too much personality stuff going on, but we get through that. And the team has really been terrific because we've had tremendous growth since 2019 was our first full year in business as Bay State Bath. And it's been, like I said, we're on pace to do some we're just constantly setting new records every year for growth. As a matter of fact, I have to constrain my growth right now. I'm intentionally holding back some of the marketing that I could be doing because, growth without proper, balance, once you get out of balance, then the customers start to notice like, how come things don't seem like they're so organized and, what's going on? So we're kind of dealing with some of those growing pains right now, trying to hire and train and reinforce the company culture, the core values. We really believe in excellent communication, contracting with care, philosophy of just, treating my patients like, I say I do this all the time. I mean, treating my customers like my patients.
It's in your DNA, which is a really great segue into my next question of, when you look at the first half of the year, now it's pretty much wrapped up. How does it feel in comparison to the first half of 2025 in terms of the lead strategy, the marketing, but also in the conversations you're having with the homeowners?
Yeah, well, the competition is thick. We've gained, we lost Newpro. They were a big competitor and they were bought by private equity. And eventually they closed down the whole company very suddenly, abruptly, with no warning. So that created a big void in the marketplace, which then got filled by some other big competitors, West Shore Home, and not to give free advertising to my competitors. But, I like to advertise that, we're very unique because we only specialize in bathrooms. So the consumers are out there. There is a very high demand for this particular sector in remodeling. Bathrooms are important for safety. And, when your bathroom needs to get done, it needs to get done. If you have leaking tile, you potentially are going to have, rot in your framing. You may have damage in your ceiling below, stains on your kitchen ceiling that are unsightly. And so sometimes it's not a want, it's a true need. And then there's plenty of customers that just want something updated and beautiful and easier to clean. And all our stuff is guaranteed for life. So the consumers, I don't think, have ever changed. I've never had a hard time generating sales. And our sales, as I said, if I wanted, at the beginning of the year, we were pacing accidentally to get to 40 million, but that was way too much growth too fast. So I had to intentionally pull back the marketing. And interestingly enough, I think a lot of the reason that we had more sales that stuck was thanks to you guys and your efforts to increase our loyalty and referrals, and our reputation really was getting bolstered by the touch points that are coming from the gFour marketing strategies. So our cancellation rate really got reduced, and our close ratio has always held pretty strong. But I would say the customers are still out there. They're just maybe, especially right now with the cost of fuel so high, the leads are starting to soften a little bit. I think when Trump gets out of Iran, things will improve. But that's kind of like a one-off thing. Otherwise, the year was like screaming busy, like way a lot of growth. But we're up about 40% year over year for our sales.
Wow, congratulations. I'm sure everyone who's listening is wanting tips on how you're getting to that growth. So I'm going to go into the next question is, what part of your marketing mix is performing really well? Where are you looking to see more improvement? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I've always been a big TV advertiser. I've been on linear TV for all 20 years that I've been in business. But specifically this past year, we leaned into OTT, where that's the streaming TV. And, we changed marketing agencies and, got connected to Level 10 marketing. And they are the people who are kind of paying attention and making sure that our pay-per-click, because I've always been a big TV, pay-per-click, SEO, internet leads, TV. I do some home shows, but I'm not a big face-to-face marketer. I'm more of an internet marketer driven by the TV exposure.
Are there any channels that you're looking to fine tune this year to see,
Yeah. My big goal this year is to really capitalize on the social media sector, the much less expensive. It's always been more difficult to get quality leads from social media. They're not as quote unquote hot as the leads that respond to my direct, television. There's something about the TV and the programming that we do that when people see you on TV, there's a higher sense of authority and believability. And I'm so well branded because I've been on television for such a long time. When you go through the social media channels, I'll be reaching people I've never reached before, because there's plenty of people that just don't watch TV, right? Like I don't have time to watch TV anymore, but so that's my intention, is to, capitalize more on getting Instagram, the TikTok, all those social media platforms, which I kind of skipped right over. I know my marketing agencies have been working with them. We also do some print because I have a paper performance program with Local IQ. They do some print and they do some social for me too, some paid social ads for Facebook.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, I have a toddler, so I now have no longer time for TV. I miss those days, but social media always on at hand.
Go. That's right.
So you mentioned referrals and loyalty in the gFour program. Can you share a little bit about the role that referrals and repeats play in your mix?
Yeah, and that's so funny you asked, because one of the reasons that I signed up with you guys is because I was at what was it called? It was called AI for Home Improvement at a conference. And that's where I bumped into Rich Harshaw from Level 10. And he then had a follow-up conference about how to really get your leads to improve. And he talked a lot about having a really well-optimized website. And then he brought up the fact that, if you guys are not getting a majority of your leads from repeats and referral business, then you're making a big mistake. You need to focus on that. So that's that. He introduced me to you guys, and I think because my referral business was only like 5% of my sales, very, very low. I think now we're up to 8%, so it's slowly rising, and our goal is to get it to the point, hopefully in a couple of years, where we're up to 50%. Either referral or repeat. The problem with my industry, though, is a lot of my customers only have one bathroom. So unless they go move to a new house, there's no opportunity for another piece of business from them. I can only get referral business. So it's really more the referral marketing that I would be leaning into to get more business through your work, which has been definitely, like I said, we've definitely seen the increase in referral activity.
And you've been in the gFour program since the fall of 2025. So
Right.
fairly, you're about to hit your 1 year mark this year. So great to see that growth in your first
Thank
year.
you.
Awesome. So I'm going to switch to a hot take. You mentioned AI, and everybody in the industry seems to be talking about AI. As an owner, what's your point of view of AI as you think about it within your business? Are you using AI currently in any parts of your business? And just what's your take on that?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of AI. I'm using AI to do a lot of my operational tune-ups, like developing policies, procedures. I use Claude. I'm currently in an AI coursework. I'm in like a leadership training program that is helping me understand how to adopt AI responsibly in the business and encourage, the team to utilize AI to create higher efficiency so that people will be more coordinated, more prepared for work. Customers will ultimately get a better experience when everybody here is more organized. So I'm using AI in the operations side of the business. I also use Hatch for lead management, and they have like an AI agent that does like a chat program to help, stay in touch with unsold leads, and because not everybody answers the phone. People are more likely to respond to a text than they are to answer the phone, I think, for people that haven't bought. So it's nice that they can opt out or continue the conversation with an AI agent that then allows my girls on the phone to stay focused on the real hot leads, the incoming internet leads or the incoming TV leads. So I love AI. I am 100% invested in AI. Think it's fabulous.
That's awesome. And it's great that you're taking that top-down approach of getting yourself to be an expert in it and then get the team to be empowered by using it as well. So,
Yes, absolutely.
okay. So I'm going to hit you with our last question of the day. So, because we're at the midpoint, everybody's looking back and reviewing how everything is performing. What would you, start, stop, or keep, heading into Q3 or Q4? What are the things that you're like, let's keep pushing ahead? What are the things you want to stop doing?
I would say the stop would probably be I had some rather expensive pay-per-click providers that, might have, you just got to be careful about the providers. So once you find a trusted marketing support team, I will continue to work with them to help me fine tune the marketing so that I can remove things that aren't effective or maybe are a little too expensive and continue to funnel money into things that are a little more effective, because I don't mind spending money. It just has to produce the revenue. So I would just say cut some pay-per-click providers that were not cost effective enough. Also, I've got mixed feelings about shows and events. I know that they're a very inexpensive lead source, but I've got so much success with the television, the advertising. I have a showroom. I want to create another showroom. I like to draw people into the showroom so that they can touch and feel the product. That's one competitive advantage that it's a unique competitive advantage because most of my competitors do not have true showrooms. So they rely on the shows and events. So probably I was going to make a big push for shows and events, but as I reflect on the close ratio and the amount of time that it takes to get those appointments to close, because a home show lead is going to go see the 4 or 5 companies that they met at the home show. So you're putting yourself right into the middle of like all your competitors, which is not a terrible thing, but I've always been not a big fan of home shows. I just think that I'd rather spend more money on TV, especially now with digital TV, where you can really focus on what areas you want to be in. So it'll be probably less shows and events and more my good steady flow of leads comes from TV and internet. So I'll do more of what I know works. And then of course with you guys, I'm going to continue to do hopefully some more outbound email campaigns because I know that's part of my program. I took the highest tier with you guys. So I have unlimited outbound emails to try to get those unclosed people to come back to us. Because, we close at 40%. So there's still 60% of people. They're buying from somebody. They don't just make appointments for fun, right? So there's a lot of opportunity to rehash, to do some aggressive rehash work. So more rehash, more outbound, touch points, more aggressive outbound, either emails or calls to the database, and then continue to fine tune the streaming TV and try to get a bigger ROI there.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Jennifer, you are a powerhouse. You have you're building a legacy here. I want to thank you so much for your time. Before we wrap up, any last advice or words of wisdom for others out there who, maybe are having a tougher time of the year or looking for peer-to-peer support? What would you tell them?
I would just say that nothing happens until the phone rings. So you've got to focus on your marketing first. Make sure that you've got good partners like gFour who, especially with your product, it's not so tangible, right? It's like, all right, I'm not going to necessarily see, although I'm pretty sure that with you guys, I did see an immediate increase and it was pretty dramatic. The decrease in the cancellation was astounding. It was, and there was really no other reason for it except that we introduced your product, which I think that the level of connectivity to the customers, especially with AI, it's really important now more than ever to get the customer to see you in a personal way because there's so much competition, at least in this industry. And, it's really fun to get more repeat customers because I kind of always poo-pooed that. I'm like, most of our customers only have one bathroom. But guess what? They move. So I've got data that's here. I've got 22 years of data. Those people, you never know what you might find. And what's the big deal? Reach out to them, have good marketing partners. That's, I guess, my biggest piece of advice for somebody that's really trying to grow is that without the marketing, it's pointless, right? You need to connect to people. You have to be known. The coaching company that I'm using right now to help me, scale and grow and be a better leader. They have a saying that says, if they don't know you, they won't flow you. Like you need people to be talking about you all the time. So you got to get in front of the consumer as much as possible. And, that obviously I'm pretty well branded because I've always been a big marketer. I think that marketing and sales, it's really the most fun part of the business. You do have to face the other side, the operations side, which is why I'm not really, like I said, I should have been doing this from home. I should have been dressed and ready so I could be doing this in a live video feed. But you know what? I couldn't leave. The people in the back warehouse, they needed my help this morning. So I jumped right in because at the end of the day, you got to be willing to get in, roll up your sleeves, and know your numbers. Don't ever and here's the last thing, because of course you can tell I love to talk. The biggest thing that I think a lot of owners do that's such a mistake is when the numbers are bad, you tend to want to avoid looking at them, talking about them. You got to know your numbers. And the time when the numbers matter the most is when they're going in the wrong direction. Because if you have good marketing partners, you just complain, raise your hand and say, something's happening. I don't feel good. I'm not getting enough leads. I need more help. And if your partners are good, they're going to help you. They're going to do something fast to right the ship if the ship feels like it's tipping in the wrong direction.
That is a wrap. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Again, congratulations on the business that you've built. I can't wait for us to do another episode, maybe a year from now, and catch up to see where the chapter takes you next. Okay?
Absolutely, Maria. Next time I'll be dressed and ready. I'll have my makeup on.
I'll drive up to you. We'll do it in person.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the gFour Contractor Pulse. This program was brought to you by gFour Marketing, the done-for-you relationship marketing firm built specifically for home improvement contractors. For more contractor success stories, information on the gFour program, to book a call with one of our experts, or to run your own numbers and see how much revenue you could win from a relationship marketing program, please visit our website at www.gfourmarketing.com.